When we circle back to showing up in our gifts and in our darkness and vulnerabilities, there's something there where we have to say, I'm going to push perfection aside and take messy action. That's the only way.
And that's just such a beautiful example of the fact that entrepreneurship is just the biggest personal development journey you could possibly go on. That was my experience, as I realized, like doing the personal work is the biggest needle mover in my business. Like it is actually what makes me the most money. It's like one of those things where you don't know until you know. And then once you know, you can't unknow. All right, here we are. The first podcast interview in my studio. I'm so excited you're here.
It feels so good to be here. It's like a huge honor.
Who would have thought, like, in Alaska
Never.
almost a year ago that here we are, and you flew in to be on this interview, and I'm just so excited to dive in.
Yeah, I almost feel like I want to tell the story about how this came about almost.
Yeah.
Because there's this universe thing that happened.
Oh, for sure.
And these things didn't start happening for me till I met you, I feel like. Or they did, but I didn't put a finger on it.
Yeah, I don't think you were open to them. I think you've had a lot of like opening and softening that's happened in the last year.
What a great way to put it.
Yeah. All right, let's go back a little.
Yeah.
And give some stories. So why don't you share, I want to know, like, before you met me, where you were at in like the start of your journey, because I know you've told me parts of I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur, and you were definitely always an ambitious career woman. But yeah, give me back to the beginning of like when you decided to become an entrepreneur.
I would say, and it's funny because I did reflect on this on the airplane. However, I was like, I really don't know where I want to start. But I think it all started to come together in my gut when I gave birth to my son. There was this breaking open when I chose to pivot in my own pregnancy. And that word pivot, I feel like, is a theme through my journey. So I was on that medical monster route and decided to fire my OB and go the unmedicated route and change everything pretty late in the game. And when I came on the other side of that unmedicated, empowering, magical birth, I was like, all you have to do is trust yourself. So this fire started to brew in my belly, and I thought to myself, it's as simple as trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Trust yourself to figure it out as you go. And so I'm looking around me kind of saying there's places in my life where I feel like I'm settling, and I've been here before, and no more of that.
Yeah.
And
so did you have a job? You had your son, and you had a job, and you were supposed to go back to it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did a lot of corporate world.
Yeah.
A lot of grinding and hustling for owners that I really, really admired.
So you liked it.
I loved it. I loved it. But there was this inner voice my whole life like, oh, I could never be an entrepreneur because I'm not a risk taker in that way. Or I could never be an entrepreneur because I don't handle stress well. Or I could never be an entrepreneur because I missed the boat and now it's too late.
Yeah. I feel like that is also something you still are constantly evolving, is like you get in your head and you're like, I can't do that because of this reason. But then your actions, you push through it and you overcome that. But it's like, I couldn't have that. I'm not at that level, you know? And then you're like, okay, I got to prove it. So we'll get into that. But that's like definitely a
You've
theme.
got me now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you had your son. You decided, I'm not going back to work.
I suffered through another 6 months.
Okay.
But that return to work did not feel good at all. Why am I doing this? What is the point?
Yeah.
And I had a very difficult postpartum, which I didn't see coming. So
Yeah. In terms of
all the things, postpartum anxiety,
Yeah.
intense depression,
yeah.
things I never thought as like a super happy, high energy, like baseline, pretty happy camper. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. And so I'm sure going back to a high stress job did not add to that well.
It did not.
Yeah. So what was the moment of I'm going to be an entrepreneur? Like, do you remember the decision?
I do. I was laying in bed. My husband was plowing. So it was like 4 a.m. and I was all by myself. And I like woke up and grabbed my laptop and signed up for a life coaching certification. And that was it. That was like, I remember vividly being like, something's got to change. I have no idea what it's going to look like, but I'm starting right now.
Yeah. And that's also something that you do is you make an investment and you do it like, I don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm making this investment, and that's like your commitment.
Yeah.
And I've watched you do that several times to different levels. So there's so many people who can't do just that, right? Like there's so many people who cannot, they sit there and they think about it for weeks. They think about it for months. They want to make the investment, whatever that is, or the next action, and they can't. What do you feel like happens in you that like pushes you over that edge?
Couple of things that come to mind. Number one, and as we get into this conversation, I feel like I make people laugh because every single thing is a story for me.
Yeah.
I'm a dancer, always have been. So like I literally can't sit still.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to get into it, but it's so funny how now in my world, that's personal branding. But throughout my life, I didn't obviously see it that way. But like I have to be in movement. And so that sitting still and being indecisive, nothing about me is comfortable in that situation. I'd rather move through the discomfort than sit still, because that paralysis, not to say that doesn't happen, because it does, but that's the momentum. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that came up is that I'm so grateful for my upbringing, because I had a father that taught me about investing when I was like a teen. It's like the only 18-year-old with a killer portfolio. And so I've seen the way that investments compound. I've seen how you get a return when you invest strategically. And I know that's like woo-woo, but it plays a role in my brain.
That's cool. Yeah. So as
Super
a young kid, teenager, you were taught the positive of taking risk.
Totally.
And
like calculated risk.
Yeah.
And how important it is to just start.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
Because that's like one of my favorite things about you is you're like, I'll figure it out, and you take the action. And like that's what stands out the most for me is since I met you in May last year, when I was like, oh, hands down, she's going to crush it, because you have the one thing that you have to have, which is I'm going to make it happen no matter what. Like literally that is the secret to success, and you have it. And so it's like, who cares about the journey and how you got here? Well, all the pivots and the things and like the unexpected and things that came up, but it's like you had that commitment, and that's all you need. That's literally all you need to be successful.
I appreciate you. I would love to hear if you remember your moment, because I feel like it's an interesting thing to bring yourself back to, especially if you haven't thought about it in a while.
Yeah. I don't think I had a moment of like, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. For me, it was like this very step-by-step journey that was like, oh, I'm doing this. Like I'm going to have a business. And so since I was young, I would always like have businesses, right? And so my brain just was always like make money. And I often did it through like service, which is interesting that I have a service business, because my businesses as a kid were like wash cars, babysit, clean houses. So I just started doing that to make money when I had a kid. Also, pivotal moment for me in starting my business was having my first, because it changes the way you value your time.
Really does.
And your freedom. And you're like, okay, this life that so many people live of go to work, leave my kid, never home, like the Matrix, I'm not doing it. And so the only other option is own your own business, or at least, be a subcontractor or something. So that's how I started, as a subcontractor. And then it just like, that built my confidence to the point where I was like, oh, I can actually build a big company. And it's weird because you would have thought that I would have had that in mind my whole childhood, because like I was this entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur, but my parents still pushed college, and they still pushed like, you've got to go to college, you've got to get a job, and then you can earn the right to have a business and like do your own thing once you have the stability. And both of my parents are very, like, they take risks, but very calculated.
Same with mine.
So it's like, we take a risk when we have a very solid foundation, meaning we've got a job, the family is taken care of,
health insurance.
Yeah. And so dropping out of college was like, what is she doing moment. And you know how it is when a lot of times you do something like that, people don't really support it until after you've proven them wrong. Like in the moment, you're going against the grain of everybody, and you're just hanging on to this like vision that you have, but very few people can see, and they care about you. So they're like, are you sure? Like, that's a little scary, and you're just like, yeah, I see it. So that was my beginning. And it's that same thing of like, of course I'll be successful because there's no other option for me. I will not leave my kid all day, and I need to make money.
Yeah.
To support our family. So
it's like an inner knowing that you can't really describe either. Mm-hmm. You had said that you saw something in me, and I just have to acknowledge the fact that you can have that deep inner knowing, but mentorship is everything, I believe. This is why I'm obsessed with coaching and mentorship for myself and for my clients, because I don't look at mentorship as a dependency or even like a lack of capability, as much as I look at it as having a borrowed belief when your belief in yourself isn't strong enough. Mm-hmm. And having someone in your corner that won't let you play small. That is what mentorship is for me. And I think sometimes people resist investing in mentorship or seeing the value in mentorship. And I just can't stress enough that every up level in my life, in my business, I have had mentorship.
Yeah.
I can root it all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. It just gives you a perspective that you can't find yourself. Mm-mm. And we get so close to what we're doing and our beliefs and our thoughts. Like ultimately, a lot of times when have coached you, it's around that. It's like, this is the current belief and the thought that you have. And we live in that as if it's just like reality. Like that's our perspective, right? And so having a mentor or people you learn from pull you out of that and challenge that. And I think I totally agree. Like I would not be where I am today without hiring mentors. And I think we're similar in the sense that, since the beginning, I invested in like a 25K mastermind, and I was like, I know I need to be in that room, and I don't need the direct even ROI. Like I just know that I need to be in that room and be around those mentors. And like, I just knew it was the next step, and all right, let's go. And you've done the same thing in different mentors of like, you don't overthink it. You don't sit in that, like you said at the beginning, that place of questioning, and there's just such a waste of energy in that in-between space. It's like either make the decision in or out and stop going around and around and around in your mind. And I just see so many entrepreneurs who sit there and go around in circles on a decision, and it's like 3 months goes by, 6 months goes by, they're in the exact same place.
Yeah, and that, like, we just can't grow in isolation. We can't. Mm-mm. There's this proximity thing. I think the fastest way to success is to put yourself around the people that are already where you want to be.
Totally.
I believe that.
Yeah.
It's not a competition thing. It's an energy thing. So I want to be around the women that are taking control of their lives. And I went to Alaska on a whim.
Yeah. Okay, we got to talk about that. Let's back up and talk about May 1st, because that's when I met you. Yeah. So you had your business. So how old was your kid?
He's 3.
Okay. So
Just
how long
turned 3.
had you been in the journey of entrepreneurship? May of last year when I met you?
started my journey in August of 2023.
Okay.
And that was, and this is so many iterations ago.
Yeah.
And if people don't know me, they should know that my audience, like it's a joke almost, but in a loving way, my audience is like, what's your Instagram handle these days?
Yeah.
I started as a pregnancy coach. So I went and did that life coaching certificate, was obsessed with it. I was like, yes, this is everything that I love to do in one profession. And I'm going to open this business and I'm going to serve pregnant mothers. And that's it. That's my niche.
Because you had just been a pregnant mother who you were like, I needed that.
Absolutely.
Which is so much of our journey. It's like we were our ideal customer. And so now we're going to solve the problem that someone couldn't solve for us.
Yeah.
And that's often what starts a business, and then obviously it evolves. So so less than a year, and then you found me through Kylie.
Yes.
And so I had my rebrand and
Yes.
decided I'm going to do in-person event in Austin for people who remember the Amazing Race. And I remember that you were messaging me, and that's when like you first came on my radar.
Yeah.
Like, okay, she's awesome. And it was like a big deal. Was that the first time that you left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was so many firsts, Emily.
Yeah.
I'm in Florida with my husband, who got to shout out to this man because nobody believes in me like he believes in me. So we're in Florida at our favorite spot in Naples, and I decide to get on a free workshop you're hosting.
Okay.
And I think that was the very first time I had ever done anything you've offered. Free workshop. It's like a live Q&A.
Okay.
And there are women in the chat talking about this live experience. And then I hear Amazing Race. And then you proceeded to say, don't worry, it's not going to be too physically intense. And I'm like, ooh, I hope it is. And and I go to the beach with my husband that afternoon. And I said, so there's this thing that I know I have to do. Don't ask me any details. I have no idea. But I have to be there. And he's like, we'll make it happen. That was
so
it.
awesome.
And then I was messaging you.
And that is also like really important. Your husband's support is, I have the same, like through, dropping out of college, starting my business, like seeing these dreams. It's like, yeah, and I think that isn't talked about enough, how important and powerful it is to have a partner that doesn't need you to like prove and explain, like, here's how I'm going to make this happen. It's sad. I see a lot of women who, were maybe moms for a while, are starting their business, and they have to like prove to their husband.
I see it all the time.
Like that this investment is worth it. And they're met with, well, you don't make any money. So, you can't do that. You can't invest in that. You got to make money to be able to pay for whatever you want to do. Like it's a hobby.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time. And so that's really amazing that you have that. I have the same with my husband, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah. And in case anybody's tuning in and is thinking something along the lines of, well, lucky for her, she found this great man. I went through a very dark divorce. Mm-hmm. This is my second lease on life. Mm-hmm. So it kind of all comes back to not settling and pushing the boundaries of where you could take your own happiness and taking control of that. Yeah. I didn't always have that. I actually had the opposite of that before I had that.
Yeah. Did you do a lot of work to shift what you were attracting in between those relationships?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because, we attract kind of what we actually want in someone. So you had to change to be able to find your husband now.
I had to rebrand my entire life.
Yeah.
And it's not a coincidence to me that you were going through this incredible rebrand when I found you.
Right.
That is not a coincidence. I was so drawn. Here's this powerhouse mother, take no shit, freedom seeker, doing it, reinventing herself. I was like, that's what I want to be around.
Yeah, and my rebrand was very much like not just, logo change.
No.
name change. Yes, it was a name change, but it was like the evolution of fully masculine only Emily to Emily today with the embodied. And so that was probably the biggest shift I've ever gone through in my business journey yet.
That was a beautiful weekend.
Yeah.
All the way around.
So cool. I can't believe it's almost been a year.
Me either.
So you made that decision and you flew out, and first time leaving your little one, that's a big deal. Like I remember the first time I left my first, and it was also for a business event, and it's tough.
It was so hard.
Yeah, it's hard. But you trusted.
I trusted, and then when I got here, there was so many incredible entrepreneurs, and I was like, this is it. Mm-hmm. These are the people that I want to be around. The encouragement, the hype, the relatability. Like, we cannot grow in isolation, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so a month later is Alaska. And at the time you came in May, you weren't in for Alaska.
No.
And it's just so everybody knows, at this point, where was your business? Like, first of all, completely different niche than it is today. Second of all, wasn't really making money yet.
No. I mean, I might have had 2 clients. And I want to point out that I'm on Instagram and I'm gaining a following and I'm cranking out content. And I'm getting messages in my DMs and I'm going out locally and people are like, your business must be exploding. We see you online. You're crushing it. And I'm like, yeah, things are fabulous. Meanwhile, I'm like, I literally can't afford my internet bill using my business credit card. And it's not that I believe in fake it till you make it, because I'd actually rather be vulnerable and raw and real. But I really believe in showing up like you're booked out. And
I fully agree.
That's something that I teach. And that is different than being fake, in my opinion.
Yeah, I fully agree. And you have to, I say this all the time, but you have to be the future version of yourself, the future CEO. And I have had so much of that in my journey. And it never stops.
No.
Because it's even like, doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I've never done a video podcast before, right?
Me either.
But I'm going to show up and be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, Mm-hmm. And events that I've hosted in the last year, like the very first, that event that I hosted, I mean, I was so nervous.
Couldn't tell.
Because you've never done it before, right? And so you have to do things you've never done with, I guess it's fake confidence, but it's convinced confidence. It's like, well, all I can do is show up and give it my all. And if I do that, I know it's going to be as best as it could.
Yeah.
And then each time it's going to get better.
Yeah. And I know that in our mentorship together, I've talked a lot about proof.
Yeah.
And that word is such a double-edged sword for me. But there's so much proof if you just look into your life. Like, stop looking at your journey from the day you became an entrepreneur and start looking all the way back. And I think for me, it was like, you've done it before. You've walked into an unknown and just figured it out. You're resourceful. And it's that inner knowing. And then, like I said, with the birth of my son, it was like, you can do hard things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that literally, to me, is the number one secret to entrepreneurship. Like, if anybody watching this, if you want to take away something, if you can do the work, because it's not like you can do that overnight.
No.
Right? Like, some people have it more natural, like you and I do. Some people have to work through a lot of limiting beliefs. But if you can put the time and energy into doing the work, to getting yourself to a place where you can be in an unknown, be in a place of discomfort, be in a place where you're taking a risk and you don't know how it's going to work out. Like, that is literally business. Yeah. You don't know how it's going to work out because nothing is predictable. Nothing is guaranteed. I mean, that's life too, but we like to think things are, predictable and guaranteed, but something could happen tomorrow in life, in business, right? But it's knowing that you'll always figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like, it's showing up with that belief of, it doesn't matter what happens, I will always figure it out. And then that gives you permission to take the actions and do the scary things.
Yeah. And surrounding yourself with the right people too. If you're feeling like things aren't vibing or you're fighting an uphill battle, it could honestly be your surroundings. And I think that's a tough pill to swallow, to like wake up and look at yourself in the mirror and say, are the people around me building me up or not?
Yeah. Which, you know, back to that relationship with your significant other, I think it matters a lot.
It really does.
Yeah. And I mean, that's your number one relationship. And if you've got someone who's like, you got to prove yourself, I don't believe in you, it's tough. And I really do see it all the time, like, especially for women.
Me too. I see it with my own clients. And I'm on a mission to help them work through that, but it's hard to watch.
Yeah. And I think the solution to it isn't always, oh, you got to find a new partner. It's you have to believe in yourself at the end of the day, right? And then if somebody else doesn't, it doesn't matter, because you are like, no, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. It's half my money too, you know, our money. And I know I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Because even if, you know, you've got an incredible partner, you're still going to face people who are like, that's risky, that's dumb. You know, it still happens to me, right? It's less as you build success because people don't want to doubt you anymore. But as long as you believe in you, and I think that's like the root of what it comes back to and what you've worked through. I think at the root, you've always believed in yourself, though. Like, even with the doubt, I think it's sometimes what has held you back, like, for a moment in the doubt.
Yeah.
But, like, the root is there where you're like, I know I'll do this.
So much. I used to, in the early days, and again, I haven't been at it this long. Like, I have so much to learn, and I'm excited about that. But in the early days, when I would hear about others' success, especially like the overnight success,
right,
I would have rage inside. And I just want to validate that for anyone listening, because when we're at that early stage, or maybe it's not early, but we're still not where we've like, quote, made it in our own minds, which that's a whole nother topic, but there was actual rage. And I was like, I'm missing something. Something's not clicking. I got to figure it out. So I had convinced myself it was strategy, and it wasn't. It was the inner belief.
It's always the inner belief.
It's the inner belief. And one of my missions, like at the end of the day, we have to sell ourselves. So if you have a partner or family, friends, whatever, and they're not seeing the vision, you need to sell yourself. You need to sell them on the vision. You're not going to be able to sell them on the facts. You don't have any dollars coming in.
Right.
So sell them on the vision. That's part of my mission, is helping women step into that place of inner belief and then sell themselves.
Yeah. But they've got to believe it first.
They do. You can't.
That's the first like foundational step, hands down.
Yeah, I went through it. This isn't BS.
Yeah.
I could be confident, and confidence closes, but eventually it will catch up to you. You have to do the work.
Yeah, it always comes back to that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so May last year you came to my event. You were in my program, right? Had you joined the program yet? Because
After
that's how you
event.
came to the client VIP day. So you must have
You're
just
right.
joined.
I had just joined
my Done With You program.
Yes.
Yeah. Because then you came to the VIP day with the hot seats.
Yes.
Yeah.
First ever hot seat of my life, and it was amazing.
You did breath work in that day.
That was insane.
And then the hot seats.
This is where I feel like you and I vibe on a level, because I used to be the type that like would take a high intensity yoga class, and then when they'd take it down in Shavasana, I would roll my mat up and leave.
Oh my God.
Okay. And you know the more woo-woo doula side of Lisa, but like I have that masculine energy in me.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, yeah.
I used to hate Shavasana too.
Right? Now I like
never
live.
left, but
Yeah, I used to walk out the door. See ya.
That's hilarious.
And now I value that kind of quiet. It's not easy, but like I see the value and the benefits.
Yeah.
So when we did breath work, I had like an out of body experience.
Yeah. I remember. It was really powerful.
It
for
was
you.
so powerful.
Yeah. Talk about that day a little bit. And I guess like that day and then afterwards, like what shifted for you? Because pretty soon you made the decision to get in my Alaska retreat.
Yeah. I would say the biggest turning point, aside from loving the energy of just that socialization, I just feed off of group energy. Yeah, so growing up, I was that kid that like craved the close friendships and like always wanted a best friend. And I had a couple of just like traumatic experiences. Like one best friend got addicted to drugs and our friendship just crumbled. She just went a different path. It was really sad. And then another friend like moved away. And I just like never felt those close women relationships growing up. And it was like this void. And I was like so popular in high school, but alone.
Yeah.
Like I was like class president and led all these clubs, but then I would not get calls on the weekends. And it like crushed me.
Yeah.
And then there was even more. I can think of so many instances where I was hurt by other women. So I remember just feeling this excitement and like finding a home at that event, like with total strangers. And we were all sitting around and kind of talking about that. Actually came up. So I wasn't the only woman in the group that had some trauma around that. I remember. And I remember just being like, this is my people right here. Like, it's okay that the past didn't bring me those friendships because it's bringing me them now.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in this room and we're all doing hot seats and it's my turn. And I started talking about the vision and getting so pumped up and like so full of fire. And the women were literally like clapping. Like, yes, the world needs that. Yes, that messaging is spot on. That is so relatable, Lisa. Just like hyping me up like I have never felt. And I was like, this is it. This is all I needed. Like everything has been validated. Now I'm just going to drive forward.
Yeah, I remember.
It was amazing.
It was just reinforcing like what they saw in you, your personality, your power. Yeah.
Yeah, I needed that.
Yeah, I had similar. I think a lot of female entrepreneurs had similar struggles with friendships.
It's painful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of powerful females struggle with relationships, unfortunately. And it's even as an adult, like it's still something that you have to work on and make an intentional effort around that.
My gosh, my brain just made a connection around this rebrand that I'm going through as we speak. Like I'm literally in that discomfort that we talked about, but I'm so much more open to it these days. And it comes back to that. Like it's hilarious that I brought this up and not even realizing subconsciously why. Because I was in the doula space until like last week. And I hate to use the word broadening because I'm really big on niching down, but I am expanding myself beyond the birth world alone into more of like health and wellness and fierce female entrepreneurs specifically. And there is a fear there, like a real fear around how I will be accepted and perceived by women at large compared to birth workers who see me as the doula Lisa and who understand me in a different way. And I have to work through that. I'm literally working through that right now.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you had an experience of challenging friendships as a female, and I don't know about you, but like the gossip, the talk behind your back, like it was just brutal.
Yeah.
I think that does show up in business when you go to put yourself out there.
Totally.
And create content. And I totally have that too, where it's like I will notice the voices all the way back from like the middle school girls of like the judgment and the criticism come back in content creation.
Yeah.
And posting, you know, it's like, who do you think you are? And those voices, they come back. I mean, it's definitely one of the most traumatic experiences I had was like middle school, middle school friendships. And you have to, you know, it comes back to that, like your own belief in yourself. Because when you have that foundation of your own belief, then those things don't matter.
Yeah.
But when you're questioning those things, it's because you're wavering in your own belief and thoughts.
Yeah. Isn't that the definition of confidence?
Yeah.
The definition of confidence, in my opinion, is that inner knowing. Because when you know and believe in yourself, you walk around different.
Yeah. It's magnetic too.
It is.
When you think about the women who carry that, that's true magnetism. And like you're saying, confidence, which comes back to that.
Yeah. That's in my
belief.
DNA, because my mother is like the definition of powerhouse. She's a force. And then her mother like invented the hashtag no filter before no filter was a hashtag.
Like, does not surprise
these
me.
Women, these women, it's who I am, like at my core. And I literally channel that energy. That was the mantra on my way over here, was like, how would your mom show up?
I love that so much. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. I almost named my program Sell Like My Mama, but then people in my corner were like, I don't think that's gonna,
like other people.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna get it. But I really believe that everything in my life has led me to this place. Yeah. And it's not a coincidence that my mom was a powerhouse saleswoman her whole life. And it never even dawned on me that sales was in my wheelhouse until more recently.
Yeah. Yeah, your journey is so cool because it's just taking your natural skills and experience, life experience, which is also so much of business. It's like, this is why I don't care about college. This is why I don't care about any of that shit. It's your life experience. And when you go build a business, the only way to get to the next level is by doing and by experiencing and learning. And then you get better at your craft and you get better at what you're doing. You get better how you show up. It's like, it's the only way.
Yeah, you sound like my husband.
You can buy all the courses in the world and listen to all the podcasts and trick yourself that that's productive. But you're going to learn by doing what we're talking about, of not faking the confidence, but just doing it anyways.
Yeah.
You will learn so much more through that experience. Like, that's the only way I've learned.
And that's why I was drawn to you. Like, you talk about that magnetism, 100%. I was like, this is how I bought Alaska. I was like, that is it right there. Because once I heard you say the things, like once I heard you say, if you leverage your own gifts, you can create a brand and you can be successful. I was like, if that is true, I am all in. And that's what I feel like authenticity is.
I think that leveraging your gifts is something that I realized later on in my journey that I had naturally done and actually incorporated as a core part of our process, because I realized like that's something you can't put in a template. You can't put in, 1, 2, 3 blueprint, and it's your superpower. It's like identifying what are you naturally good at, born with, and how do we amplify that in your business as much as possible. And I realized like everybody successful is doing that. And this is why replicating somebody else's success never works, because you are not them. You're not built like them. Like, each one of us is built with such a unique upbringing and personality and like natural born talents and all of those things. And so that's just such a huge part of what I teach now. And so whenever I'm working with an entrepreneur and, talking about content creation or how to show up or how to market your business, it's like, okay, what's going to be fun and natural to you first?
I love that. And I think you could even take it a step further. And this is one of my favorite things to do as a coach, is flip that a little bit and say, what are the things that you've been told your whole life that maybe aren't true? Like, I always tell my clients that some of the self-limiting beliefs are things you never consented to. And yet we've been conditioned our whole lives. I'll never forget, I'm in first grade. I'm in chorus class. Now, I can't sing, which is a bummer because I can never be a triple threat. So I'm in first grade and we're all singing as a group, and I'll never forget Miss Carol. She had this piano with 1,000 stickers on it. It was ridiculous. And she stops playing mid-song and she says, "Lisa, you're the only voice I can hear and you're drowning out all the good singers."
Oh my gosh.
Embarrassed me, which is really hard to do, by the way, and mortified my, 8-year-old self. And I would be crazy to think that those types of experiences throughout my life, the tone it down, Lisa, you're too loud, Lisa, you're too much, didn't play a role in some of these self-limiting beliefs that I now have to work really hard at dismantling, which is why being in your world is helpful. But so when we're looking at branding or leveraging your gifts, I love to say get vulnerable and use those hardships as a way to become more visible. Like take those things and flip them on their head and use that because it's still a part of you. So I think sometimes clients of mine get tripped up. Like, how do I stand out? How am I different? What are my differentiators? Let's look at the natural born gifts that you were talking about. And then let's also dig into the stuff that we don't want to face because there's power in that too, I think.
I totally agree. I mean, because those things are probably the things we've avoided and also said, oh, they're true. They're just automatically true about me. And so therefore, I'm going to show up as the person that this is true, that I'm too loud or too much, and we believe it. And so therefore, we operate in our lives as if that were true. So if you challenge that.
Yeah, I think our clients and the people that are investing in us can see right through that BS. If we close the door on the vulnerable side, the ego, the persona, we have to really show up in both. We have to be the confident, front-facing version of ourselves, and then we also have to highlight some of the darkness, in my opinion. Those are the people that are authentic, if we're going to use that buzzword.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, we could dig into that buzzword of true authenticity, because there's like this, I'm going to show up and cry on social media, and so therefore I'm authentic. But it's all staged happening, you know. Okay, let's talk about Alaska.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we've left off. So you were in a place where Alaska was a high investment and you really wanted to go, I remember. But you were like, there's just no way. There's no way I can do it. It doesn't make sense. And so talk to me about that shift in a short period of time that made you go all in.
It's funny because as a sales coach, I literally can't sit here and not break down that purchase from that perspective. And so the reality is we buy with emotion and we justify it later with logic. And I would literally get an email about it and be like, this is speaking to my soul. I think I replied to like 6 of them and said, this is the best email I've ever read. And that was like before the thought of going. And my very close friends, I have this incredible accountability pod, many of which are now in your world. And they were like, we know you're going. We know you're going. We know you and we know how you do things. So just do it already.
Yeah.
And I had to scrap. I had to make some phone calls that you hope you don't have to make in your 30s. Hey, Dad,
parents, right?
can I borrow some money? And it's not even about that. It's the idea of being resourceful.
Yeah. And making it happen.
Just making it happen.
Yeah.
The money honestly wasn't the hurdle. The hurdle was being away for an entire week.
Across
the country. And my husband works a lot. So it wasn't as simple as like, take a week off work, honey. Like that's not a thing.
Yeah.
And so it was just piecemealing. And it became kind of a funny thing between you and I, like when you saw my childcare patchwork situation, but you just do what you have to do. And I really believe that was going to be a milestone. I knew it.
Yeah. So you got the money, got the childcare, you made it to Alaska. We had the most incredible trip. My gosh.
It really was.
It was amazing on all fronts. Like the women there, the strategy, the airplane ride that I'll never forget. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just even being in an Airbnb with those women. Because I was clearly the underdog.
And you remember I called you out for that?
Yeah.
I was like, stop. I don't know what I said exactly, but
Yeah.
I remember that you kept saying, like, basically, you're not good enough for the group. Like, I haven't made it yet, you guys. Like, and I think I said something like, what if you've already made it?
Yeah.
Like, stop. You've already made it. You're just on your journey. And I think that's a big thing is like you have the confidence to put yourself in the rooms. But then when you're in the room, you're like, but I'm
questioning.
I'm the lowest. That's how you see it. You know, I don't deserve to be here, or like I need to be quiet. And I hope that's shifting for you.
Big time.
After the last especially month. But I remember that in Alaska. You almost were like, I shouldn't be here. Like, I'm not making money like these other women are. But the reality is it doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter because to me, like, of course, yes, I get that it matters. It's a scorecard. It's like once you have money coming in, you've proven to yourself that your business can make money.
But it shouldn't be the priority.
And it doesn't take away from the entrepreneur you are, right? And you have the drive, the values, the contribution of value as a person that makes it so absolutely you should be in those rooms, right? It's like we're just on our journey of making money, different paths than other people. But like your values and who you are is what should dictate, you know, the people that you're around and that want you around.
Yeah.
Like you bring energy to a room. You bring positive value.
Appreciate you.
And we don't care about the money.
Right. It's a byproduct.
Just like Lisa's just on her journey and we just all knew it was going to happen soon.
Yeah, I needed those women specifically. And I think when we're faced with those types of decisions, you have to trust that there's a reason bigger than you. I had more than one massive shift on that trip.
Yeah.
There was a pivotal moment. We were all sitting around. I think it was very late at night.
Yeah,
we should have been in bed.
Chat.
And I don't remember exactly how it came up, but all of a sudden you helped me dig into where this stuff was coming from. And we landed on the word perfection.
That's right. And your background as a dancer.
Dancer with a really dark past with disordered eating, like a lot of things that point to this perfection tendency and the paralysis that comes. And I know I'm not alone in that because I've talked to hundreds of women entrepreneurs in the last 2 years that have told me that perfectionism paralyzes them as well. And so I think the point I'm trying to make is that when we circle back to showing up in our gifts and in our darkness and vulnerabilities, there's something there where we have to say, I'm going to push perfection aside and take messy action. That's the only way. Mm-hmm. And so since then, that pivotal conversation, I've checked myself every single day. Mm-hmm. That's perfectionism talking, Lisa. Because I think that a lot of us are afraid to show up unless it's perfect. So we say, you got to show up. You've got to show up. But what does that really mean? It means showing up messy.
Yeah. And that's just such a beautiful example of the fact that entrepreneurship is just the biggest personal development journey you could possibly go on. Because I think we all have those like core dark sides, beliefs that you'll work on them. You'll work on that your whole life. And it will probably never be fully healed, right? It'll always be there. And in certain environments or situations or seasons, it might come up more. And then it's like an opportunity to work another layer and another layer. And I think with the work that people talk about, it's like it never ends for this reason. And I love when I see someone's journey in business be like a spotlight on the thing they get to heal. And I think that's your thing. One of your things is like the perfectionism and continually challenging that. And I think that's also why you've had to pivot so much. Like you've had to go on this bigger journey of continually like doing it messy.
Yeah.
And dismantling that need for it to be perfect. And like that's been so much of your journey so far.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody is thinking about tuning into their gut and making a change that seems really scary, all I can say is do it.
Yeah.
I've changed my niche. I've changed my title. I've changed the name of my business. I've changed my Instagram handle. I've changed my podcast name twice. And from the outside looking in, that sounds scattered, disorganized, almost a distraction. But there's a difference when you can tune in and say, I'm going to keep reaching for something bigger. And I'm getting really close.
Well, and that's the journey in the beginning. Like that is the result of I'm figuring it out along the way.
And that's what we don't get to see a lot of the greats go through.
Because a lot of people are going to see you as starting last month, which I want to get into. She just had a $10,000 month. But that, for a lot of people, like fast forward 5 years from now, that's all they're going to see.
You're so right.
And so you forget that beginning. Like my beginning was an $18 an hour virtual assistant. That's nowhere near what I'm doing today. But the only way to get to what you're doing today is in that messy process. So I think that's why you've made those changes, because you couldn't have been presented with the decision to do that if the things before hadn't happened yet.
Exactly.
So it's not that everybody's going to have to pivot, but I think that everybody has to shift, and you'll never stop. It's like I've changed my podcast name 4 times.
See, I didn't know that.
As I've evolved, and it's about this will be a new name. So it started as like Hirsch Marketing Underground.
Oh yeah.
Then Hirsch Marketing, I think, was the podcast. No, Not for Lazy Marketers, which was very masculine. Then Embodied Marketing, and so this will be the 4th.
Okay.
This will be the 4th new name. And so that's just normal is what I'm trying to say, but you only get to those decisions by doing. Like if you stay in the same place, then you stay doing the same thing, because you're not experiencing and getting the feedback and growing yourself. And I think so much of like your brand is representative of you too.
Yeah.
And what you're learning about yourself as you go in terms of like the sales specialty and who you want to help. And like that's coming in the journey.
Yeah. It's scary, but it's kind of this idea that we could live our lives staying, and in my opinion, that's like settling sometimes, or we can push the boundaries and be alive.
Yeah.
Really.
That's the only option, the second one.
It
for
is.
me.
For me too. Otherwise, why do it?
Right.
It's not easy being an entrepreneur.
Oh, no.
And I watched the struggle my whole life. My
Right.
mother, my father, my husband, like some of my early mentors when I was in the corporate world. It's crazy to think back on it. I don't think we do enough inner reflection to pull out the things that we need to pull out. And that's why your mentorship has been so helpful for me, because you prioritize that inner work. And there's not a lot of other coaches out there doing that.
It's not sexy to sell.
It is not.
That's the thing. Like, most people, I don't even sell it on the front end, right? Because most people don't. They're not like, I need to do some inner work to make more money.
Yeah.
It's I need the marketing strategy. I need this. But you've been in my containers, and majority of what we end up digging into on the deeper layer is the inner work, is the beliefs, is the thoughts.
Yeah.
Is the way we live our day, is the way we show up. It's the way we talk to ourselves.
Yeah.
You change that, you won't be the same person, and therefore you won't have the same business.
Exactly. And I'm ping-ponging a little bit, but I think it's okay. Going back to Alaska, when I think about that sale, because again, my brain can't differentiate at this stage, I could care less about the agenda, how many days we were there, the fancy restaurant that we were going to go to. Like, none of those features mattered for me.
Yeah.
It was, how am I going to come out of this on the other side? How am I going to feel? And that's what I purchased, and that's what I invested in. And that is why I say you have to sell every day.
Yeah.
Because people are buying you, whether you want to admit it or not, if you're in the service industry, especially if you're in women's health and wellness and you're providing a service, they're buying you.
I say that your personal development, your self-care is an obligation to your clients.
Beautiful.
I think that if you don't, it's like if you don't invest in yourself, and the more you want to coach and the more you want to have containers and the more you want to make an impact, the more you have to put into that. Because if you don't, they'll feel it. Like, you will start to operate out of integrity, I think.
Yeah.
Because how could I show up for an event or a retreat if I was not prioritizing my self-care, my stillness practice, my own work, and like constantly challenging myself to be the next level? And I think that beginning entrepreneurs oftentimes do not see that. And then you hit this point where you're like, oh, that's the biggest needle mover. And that was my experience, is I realized, oh, like, doing the personal work is the biggest needle mover in my business. Like, it is actually what makes me the most money, because how you show up, then it's what you attract. It's who you are as a leader. It's how you feel when you run your business. It's the capacity you have to make decisions and ideas and all of that. And like, it's like one of those things where you don't know until you know. And then once you know, you can't unknow.
And is that not motherhood too? That's
Right.
how I'm a mother. As a mother,
Right.
It's the same for me.
Yeah.
And I've struggled a lot with that.
Yeah.
With not feeling 100% fulfilled in motherhood alone. Like, it's hard to even say that out loud.
Yeah.
But I'm a better mother when I prioritize my business and this movement and this type of coaching. And that to me is self-care. And then there's that other layer that you just pointed out. So it's giving yourself something to grow in, I think.
Yeah. I just saw a video over the weekend. I posted it that was said, your kids won't remember how you treat them. They'll remember how you treat yourself. And I was like, oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
So good, because it's like, an obligation to your family to take care of yourself. And for me, like, having my business and my dreams and everything, I want my kids to see that. I want them to see that I go do whatever it takes, make it happen, chase the dreams, so that they do that. And it doesn't mean I don't have guilt, am I spending enough time with them? Am I present enough? It's not easy.
It's not.
It is not easy. Like, not even just the time, it's the presence. It's like, can I shut it off at the end of the day and actually fully be present? And I work on it every single day.
I know you do, and it really is a really good thing to strive for, and I see you do it, and that helps me and inspires me to do the same.
Yeah. And it's a constant, will always be.
Yeah. I read something recently from a powerhouse entrepreneur mother, and she said that our kids need us when they're babies and young, change their diapers, give them a bath, all the little needy things. And what she wants is when they're in their 20s and in their 30s, the phone calls of, Mom, I'm walking into an interview, or Mom, I'm about to have a sales call with a really high-end client, or Mom, I'm going to make this pivot in my business. What do you think? And that hit me like, that's what I want. And that's why I'm going to keep following my dreams, because I want to be needed when my kid is in his 20s and in his 30s and maybe future kids down the road. Like, I want those phone calls.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that my kid and future kids are going to be calling my husband and I for that stuff. And that's what I want. So that's when I feel that mom guilt, I try to come back to, I don't want them to flee the coop and then never need me again. I want them to be like, look what my mom built. I'm going to call her because I have a question about how to close this big deal.
And you're inspiring to them in that situation. You know, it's like how you feel about your mom.
Yeah.
And your dad is like,
Yeah.
you said, I want to show up here how my mom would.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want.
Yeah. With
Absolutely.
a wig on or something. Yeah. My mom is so much fun.
I believe it. I fully believe it, knowing you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about last month. So you just had your first $10,000 month.
Yeah.
We're not even a year from Alaska, which was June. So $0 about it. Am I
negative dollars when you're investing and you're right in the front end, you have to make investments.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Negative dollars
in Alaska. Weren't making sales. You were making a new plan for new offers, which you pivoted even more after.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just had a $10,000 month, and it was your second live launch.
Yeah.
So I want to get into that of like the first live launch, and you've just stayed so committed to the process. And even when you didn't fully like hit a goal that you wanted, but you saw forward momentum, you just stayed committed. So let's talk about last month and your launch, or whatever you want to share about the last two launches.
All I can say is the first launch was riding at the seat of my pants. Like, I really decided I was going to launch like days before I launched, which I now know isn't really the best strategy. And so I'm still glad I did it, because I was able to do a bunch of sales calls and get the reps in and start learning the language of my ideal client, all the things that you need to do. But this second launch, this quote real launch, was incredible because I got to experience the runway and then experience the build up and be in live webinars. I ran 3 of them, and I could have run 3 more. Like, I fed off that energy. And so I think my biggest takeaways from this experience was that when I am leaning into the things that are really me, like being on that stage, it felt so much easier. I think what happens along the way, at least for me, was that I would try to follow frameworks or put myself in a box based on what's worked for other people. But at the end of the day, like, I've always been a rule breaker, which I don't even like calling myself that. That's just, I'm creative. So when I started doing it my way, it started to work for me.
Yeah.
And I found myself in the midst of this launch going, this is fun as hell. And if it's not fun, I need to like look at why and make changes for myself personally. Maybe that's not the way for everybody, but I had a lot of support during the launch, and I was able to make real-time adjustments, and I love working on the fly. And I didn't think it would happen, honestly, until it started happening.
You were leveraging your gifts. You're using what energizes you, which is leveraging. If you're leveraging your gifts, then you're going to feel energized because it comes natural, it comes easy. So tell everyone the program that you sold for this launch.
I have an 8-week program called Sell to Serve, and it is very, very much about building confidence, building a bold brand, and then selling like hell.
Which your journey has been identifying that that's a huge strength of yours.
Yeah.
Selling. And you have a background of you sold in personal training or something, right?
Yeah, I've probably closed over $5 million across different companies and even in the online space for mentors of mine and people.
You're so funny. And so you think that you didn't have credibility because you weren't making money in Alaska, but I've just sold $5 million worth of things in my background.
I think it's kind of
so
like
funny.
Because it was someone else's business, it didn't
you
feel.
Yourself.
Yeah, I think it was. I had this mantra going in my head, which was total BS. Like, I can sell for everybody else, but I can't sell for myself, which is not true.
No.
And I think I've recognized that there's a lot of gurus out there talking about sales in a certain way. I'll even go as far as saying men, and there's this masculine energy, I think, sometimes associated with selling. And so what I've realized is what comes natural to me doesn't come natural to everyone. And I really, really want women to start charging their worth and stepping into this space of feeling comfortable taking up space. So this program that I've created is really to help build confidence and give women skills so that they can see that selling is just serving.
Yeah. I say the same thing about selling. I think a theme too of what's coming up is, you said, I didn't realize that what came natural to me came natural to everybody else. And I think that like that's a thread for you too, is continuing to lean in to what your natural gifts and what came natural to you. And I think so often entrepreneurs don't realize that. They're like, wait, this is valuable. Mm-hmm. This knowledge that I have, this skill that I have, this experience that I have is valuable. Like it's just my everyday. And that's your gold. And we don't realize it. So we like overcompensate and we overcomplicate our messaging and we like put too much fluff and like we make it so much harder than it actually has to be. And the more you find that ease, right? And that's been a big journey of mine too, is like the ease. And I think that you have, through these pivots, like more and more, less like trying to overcompensate and work really hard and like prove, to like, I already have this skill. Like I've already mastered sales. I've sold all of that, $5 million in my background, and like leveraging that. And that's why it's gotten easier and more fun. And your journey is such a great example of that. And I don't think entrepreneurs realize their value. Like I hear this all the time when I talk to someone who's like a practitioner or something. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait, everybody doesn't know that,
Yeah. It's like that perspective. You have a unique perspective and you could be unlocking something for someone else. Just show up in the way that you think, feel, and move through the world. You're right. We overcomplicate it.
Yeah. So you got your program. You launched it one time. Flew by the seat of your pants, which I love about you, honestly. Like I know, okay, yeah, we don't want to do that every time. Yeah. But it's just another example of like, I make it happen. We're going to do this. You've had to navigate the tech on your own. You don't have a team yet. It's coming this year. You launched. Did you hit your goal that first launch?
No.
Okay.
I did not.
And how did that feel?
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was really tough. But I laugh at this because in the moment it felt so hard and so heavy. And when I look back at the way that I did that, I don't even know how I sold what I did sell, because I was confusing everyone. I was confusing myself. My messaging was a mess. So the fact that I even closed the deals that I closed in that launch it validated why my sales skills are everything. Truly.
And that the base offer was good.
Yeah. So I really truly believe, and I learned this from you and your team, that nothing about that was a failure. Nothing.
You can't fail.
You can't fail.
Because you couldn't have had the $10,000 a month in the launch you just had without the first one.
No way.
I wish people would understand this more.
It's hard to swallow.
I know. In the moment, it's like when you don't hit your launch goal, you're like, why am I doing this? I should just quit.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But if we could just zoom out and go, what if this was supposed to happen? Mm-hmm. And I talk about this all the time with my girls in coaching, like mastermind, all of it is you will not make decisions that you needed to make if things didn't work before that. Like when something is happening in my business that is not good, something's falling apart, there's a fire, whatever. I'm like, okay, great. This is forcing us to look at something that we haven't looked at in months, or make a decision that we wouldn't have made. Because if every single day everything is like, we're crushing our sales goals, our clients are 10 out of 10 happy, like there's zero problems. First of all, it does not exist.
No.
Second of all, you won't improve. You won't question. It's like there's such a beauty in quote failure.
I agree.
You can't really fail, but we'll call it that.
Yeah.
So that first launch, you then up-leveled your messaging. You made shifts and changes, and that's what then led to the next one. And then this last one, you did awesome, but you learned too from that one too. That's going to impact the next one.
Yeah, I was on a coaching call with your team last week, and one of your coaches I just vibe so well with, and I was having an imposter-y day, like we all have them. And he said, I want you, Lisa, to normalize the ups and downs. And he said, because he thanked me for bringing the heaviness and the imposter syndrome and the realness to the coaching call. He said, everyone needs to hear this. And he said, you have very low lows and very high highs. And he said, you're really intense. And my friend who was on the call, who knows me really well, literally fell off her walking pad laughing. And in the past, when I've been called intense, it hurt. But I knew he meant this in love, and it was a compliment.
It is a compliment, yeah.
And he meant that the ups and downs are normal. And that the sooner that I can normalize the ups and downs and then ride on those waves. And it was a really amazing conversation. It opened my eyes. And I think we need to normalize the ups and the downs, period.
Absolutely.
We're only seeing the ups. And that is one of the flaws, there are many, of social media.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard because people can't share a lot of times the downs when they're happening. Right. But I think the more, we can be transparent about that, the better. But the more you normalize it, it's like then you have the capacity for when you do have a down season, launch, whatever, you're like, okay, like this is normal. And it doesn't send you in the spiral of like, maybe it's my offer, maybe it's my business, maybe it's me, maybe I can't do this. So your first launch, you didn't hit your goal. You learned from it. You stayed committed. And you went into this next launch, which had its ups and downs in the launch.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And the day, that last day where you, like the morning, you're like, I'm feeling rejected. And then you come back and you're like, I got 4 more sales or whatever.
This is why I have to practice what I preach. And I know I'm not the only coach out there that like has philosophies, but then when it comes to your own business and life, it's tricky. But mid-launch, I'm less than halfway to my goal, and I'm having a really hard time detaching from the outcome.
Yeah.
And I started playing stories in my brain. Like, I can only close on the live webinar, so this open cart week is not for me. But you have to go back to your why, and you have to trust. I've been here before. And the truth is, and to your point, that's come up a lot in this conversation, is whether I had made the goal or not didn't matter. And I was grateful to have the group support of the mini mind and the, having the community that you've created. It's so important because when I was in the thick of it, I was able to say, I am having a really hard day. I'm not even halfway to my goal. What a bummer. Like, I'm feeling so defeated. And the messages back that I got were, you know what to do.
Yeah. And I think that, the feelings of that rejection and defeat is also normal.
It is.
And letting yourself feel that, but not let it dictate your actions.
Exactly.
And your beliefs. It's like, that is a feeling that is temporary and it's valid. But it doesn't mean that, my business won't be successful or my launch won't be successful. Yeah. So I remember that day. So you're in the mini mind. That morning, you're like, I'm feeling super rejected. Yeah. I'm feeling super bummed. And it was like 4 hours later, you came back and you had gotten like how many sales?
Like 5. I remember I sent, and I have to shout out to Kylie because she texted me that morning and said, how's the launch going? And I was like, not great. Yeah. Not the way I wanted. And she said, you know what to do. That was her. I screenshotted the message. And she didn't mean go do XYZ, but in my brain, I was like, follow up. Follow up, Lisa. This is your strength. Just go do your thing. And I followed up so hard, Emily, and got 5 more sales, like by 6 p.m. that night.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
That was half your launch sales in a day.
Yeah. It was great. And it was in the follow-ups.
Yeah. And it was just the shift of, like, imagine if you didn't have the shift of, I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the action. Because at the end of the day, even if you got to the launch, you didn't hit your goal, at least you knew you did everything you could.
Yes.
And I think that is also the most important thing. It's like, don't even do it if you're not going to be all in.
I agree.
And so every launch, every business venture, whatever, it's like, as long as you're committed to being all in and you know you did everything you could with what you have today.
Right.
Because you're going to have more in a year, skill sets and experience and perspective. But everything you can today, it's like, that's all you can do. I think I did hear this from someone else. So Cody Sanchez, I think, is who said it. But trust like it's up to God and work like it's up to you.
Love that.
And it's like, yeah, you got to trust that the outcome is exactly what it's supposed to be. But work like the outcome is up to you. And you're going to do everything you can to get there. And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
And how did it feel hitting the $10,000 month?
That was a milestone I had put in my brain. And I don't, for whatever it's worth, like agree with it or disagree with it. But I was like, once you do that, things will start to snowball. Because in my mind, that is a number that would allow me to have the freedom that I've been dreaming about since I started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I say freedom, it doesn't even necessarily mean dollars. It's more about like the mental freedom.
Yeah.
People want this, Lisa, and people need this, and it is your obligation to deliver it. And being in my live cohort has been the most incredible proof. I can't even put it into words. The feedback, the breakthroughs, every single woman that bought that round were my ideal clients. And that is, it works. The process works.
Yeah. Yeah, and you did so much work to get there.
I did do a lot of work.
Did.
A lot of late nights. You know, you hear those stories and I remember being like, I want that. Like, I'm so ready for the hustle. But it can be tough when you're hustling and not seeing results. And I know I'm not alone in that either.
Right. You got to have the vision.
Yeah.
You got to have the vision and the bigger dream.
Yeah.
To keep going when you're hustling and not seeing the results, because that's what keeps you going.
Yeah. It's
And
been a wild ride.
Yeah. And again, I want to reiterate for everyone, like truly, the moment I met you, I knew you were going to be successful. Like whatever success, you know, definition of success, but that you would have a successful business that brings in money. And it is because of your commitment to do whatever it takes, to go all in, to show up messy, and just make it happen. And like that is the number one factor to success, like that I see in every successful person I know. And when you look at entrepreneurs who like their stories, it comes back. You see that thread of like, I was told no.
Yeah.
I was told I was going to fail. And they just did it anyways. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I bootstrapped it. I worked late. Like that is the journey.
Yeah.
And if you have that, it's where my whole concept of like, you can have it all and it always works. It's never if, it's always when. And I really believe like with all of me outside of business too, you can do anything that you want, anything with the decision that you're going to make it happen. That's it.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I appreciate those kind words, but I remember hearing you say that very early on, and I attached to that. I grabbed it. I was like, if that's true, then we're all in all the time, because that is something I can commit to. I know that.
Yeah.
And it's not always about strategy. The strategy 100% has a place.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But that inner belief is something you have to tackle first so that the strategy works.
Yeah. And make that decision.
Yeah.
And like it's from there, it's done. It's already done. Whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking about this idea recently that, so as a dancer, for my whole life, it was always like, learn the choreography, perform it perfectly, just like the person who taught it to you. And I always kind of felt like an underdog in the studio and in performances and definitely in auditions. But then as I got a little older, I started recognizing that I was getting picked because of my work ethic and my energy and my attention to detail and things like that. So I've really embodied that. Like in the online space specifically, it's not always the best who do the best. So I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but just because you're really, really good at your service, at your niche, whatever it is, doesn't mean you're going to be the most successful. It's the people that deliver with heart, who are captivating, who grab your attention because you see something in them. It's that livelihood, that energy. And I think that's what you're basically saying is go all in.
Yeah. It's so true. And the ability to connect and the messaging, like I see a lot of times practitioners and people who are really good at what they do not have a big business at all because they haven't figured out that connection piece.
Yeah.
Which comes down to messaging and being able to attract their ideal customer, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts, lessons, things you feel incomplete about sharing here?
I feel pretty complete, but I will say that we can reinvent ourselves over and over and over, and pivoting is not failure. Pivoting is truly a superpower, in my opinion. Yeah, I just don't want anyone listening to be afraid to step into a new version of themselves. It doesn't mean anything other than you are learning who you were always meant to be. It's within you. And getting the right mentors in your life, being in the right environment, and just continuing to follow the path, it's very instinctual. You don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah. And I think the faster you do that and you lean into those pivots, right? You know, that feeling of like, this just isn't right. There's something off. I'm like, you know, those thoughts that come up and you're like, okay, this is the direction I should go or the decision I have to make. And then we shut it down or we avoid it. It's like the faster you face that, which is what you've done, the faster you can kind of move to the next season, the next level or whatever you want to call it. And I think you could have sat in like, no, I committed to working with pregnant moms. And it hasn't even been a year since that was your niche. But like as soon as you knew that was no longer the path and what was in alignment, you made the next decision and you just took the action, messy action, didn't have it all figured out, like changing the names, whatever. And I think that's just a huge lesson for people because I don't think you definitely wouldn't be right here right now today if you would have been trying to force something because you had committed to that.
We just have to keep saying yes to ourselves, trust that internal voice, let the chips fall, and trust the process. That's really all it is. Trust yourself and trust the process, period.
I love it. Well, we didn't even talk about how you flew out here, but we can quickly wrap up with that story because Lisa is my first guest.
Such an
honor. On the podcast. And we'll talk about the side note of the behind the scenes tech. That honestly is just an example of like doing imperfect. Everything we're saying here today, like you wouldn't figure these things out until you do it.
Yeah.
But I was in yin yoga one night and I just dropped in this idea of like, you should fly Lisa out because you had just had your 10K month. And I just think your journey's incredible of being a part of my events in Alaska and in my program and like just watching you, not just the 10K month, but watching you become who you've become over the last year. And I texted her and I said, hypothetically, do you want to fly out and be on my podcast and be in-person interview? And I was like, I don't know if she'll, you know, hype, just whatever. It's kind of my motto, like ask and see what they say. And you said,
I left you a voice note because I was worried if I typed it, you wouldn't get the full energy. But essentially, I had already planned to pitch you me being on your in-person podcast. I had booked Emily's July in-person event like the minute she dropped it because I was like, I have to be at every live event at this point. And I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pitch her next week and say, I'm already going to be in Austin in July. I will bring you a fire podcast episode. Let's do this. And then I wake up to a message from her.
The day before you put it on your calendar.
Before.
Yeah, she sent me a screenshot. It literally said,
I wanted to prove, like, I'm not making this up. Pitch
podcast.
Emily podcast. I told my husband about it.
Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised because I know you're like, this is new, but
what?
To me, I'm like, of course.
Yeah. No, I'm on board.
Yeah. So fun.
Yeah.
And she's like, done. Like, as per Lisa, like, figure out the childcare, book the flight. I'll be there in 2 weeks. And that's how we did it.
It was awesome.
So it has been such an honor to watch your journey, be a part of it, be a small part of it.
Huge part.
You've done it though. Like that, you've shown up. You know, I can lead someone somewhere and then they can take it or not. And you take it and you are like all in every day, every week. Through the good, through the bad, through the highs, through the lows. And so I'm just excited. Like I said this to you on last month. I'm like, this is just the beginning. Like this is just the beginning. And who knows where you'll be in a year, honestly. It's like we think we know right now, but
we have no idea.
Opportunities will come up. You'll continue to adapt to the feedback you get and the ideas that drop in. And I'm just excited to watch you.
I appreciate you more than you know. From breath work situations to just seeing something in me from the very beginning. I don't think people realize what that type of mentorship does for us as far as helping us see something we can't see in ourselves just then. And it's been a really important piece of this journey. So I appreciate you, and I'm going to cut it before I cry.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you. This has been great.